Hello and welcome to my 11th video podcast. In today's show, my special guest is my dear friend Simon Ross, aka Rossi. Rossi's well known nationwide for hosting a breakfast show called Greatest Hits Radio, and he's also previously presented Radio City Breakfast. You can safely say that Rossi has been around the block when it comes to working on live radio, hosting shows like Rock FM, Capital, Magic Radio and Air, just to name a few of them. However, what you don't know is he didn't always start off as a DJ. He went to school for business studies and trained as a professional chef. Rossi, it's a pleasure to have you in our house, in our bar.
Craig Phillips, it's been a while coming.
Yes.
And as you say, I've been around the block, and a few of those blocks you've been with me.
Oh.
And I've been with you, and I think there's probably more of that that'll unfold as our little
That's what I worry about. That's what I worry about.
Our little chat and banter continues. It's good to be here. Thank you very much for asking me.
Thank you very much. It's great.
And it's number 11.
Number 11, yes.
What is it they say in bingo balls?
Legs 11? There you go.
I'm not sure if we're allowed to do that anymore. I think they'll probably tweak.
We'll be cancelled already by the end of the week.
By the start of the conversation.
Well, listen, this is exciting for me because normally I'm on the receiving end. You've interviewed me dozens of times across various different stations over the years. Now I get to sit you in and ask you questions.
Yes, and because you know so much about me, I'm the worried one, actually.
Are you nervous?
I am, just get a little bit dry around the mouth.
Normally I feel nervous because I'm going up into the top of the tower there and Rossi's in control. And I'm thinking, what's he going to ask me about? What's he going to say?
Well, as you say, we've both been around if you want to call it the media block for over the years. So I think we both know how to play a ball here.
Definitely, we certainly do.
Yeah.
So listen, you are nationwide now, aren't you, across on the radio station. Many people hear your voice every day driving into work. They may not always recognise that beautiful face of yours. So I think podcasts like this is something you should be doing more of. You should be on them because you're a total pro. How long have you been in the business for?
Full time, actually. I hung up my chef's apron in April 1991, so that
91.
makes it 33 years.
33 years, oh my days.
Does that make me a veteran, a disc jockey veteran?
Oh, I'd safely say you're getting close to it. You've got to be, haven't you? Oh. Okay, so before all of the DJ stuff, we mentioned you went to business school and also you become a professional chef. What was life like for you at school? You kind of entrepreneurial or were you?
No. I got on really well with fellow pupils and teachers alike. I was a bit of a rascal, but not too much. Not too much. I knew how to draw the balance. But me and homework weren't good friends. I did just enough to get through exams.
Did you enjoy school or not?
School and I and homework, as I say, weren't best friends. I had no attention span. I had the attention span of a spaniel in a pedigree chicken factory, seriously. And my mind, I was the kid staring out the window, mind wandering, looking forward to the weekend, going swimming, staying at my granny's, etc. So if I don't have an interest, then I get really, really bored. And then I started O-levels, and I did all the sciences. I did English language, English literature, which I excelled at. I quite enjoyed that.
Academic then, yeah.
Well, it would appear that way, but not really. And I got so bad that I had to opt out. And someone said, you need to find a trade or something. And I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah, really, because at this point you didn't know you were going to be working in the media or as a disc jockey or anything, did you?
Nothing like that. And then I got a part-time job in a hotel as a waiter. Okay. And then I became really good friends with a guy who was a chef. Now, this is before chefs became rock and roll stars like we know them today. But even back then, in 1982, I thought, wow, that's quite a platform there. Okay. I mean, I really like it. And I couldn't cook, to save myself. And I did a pre-catering course. So I went from being more or less near the bottom of the class, doing my O-levels, to actually my results were, in some cases, first in Northern Ireland. Yeah. So because I took an interest and I really threw myself into it. Okay. And then there was a course that came up, and it was a very expensive course, and there was only, I think, about 30 people picked from 400 applicants, and I managed to get on that.
Really? Okay.
And that's when I went to the College of Business Studies in Belfast. And I mean, you're talking 1983 when I went there. Yeah. I mean, that was fairly peak trouble time, Belfast.
Of course, And how old would you be then?
I was 17, 16, 17, yeah. And I've got to say, I've had two of the best years of my life in those particular years, between 83 and 85. And again, I really loved learning and really loved learning both in college and in the restaurants and the hotels. And I really threw myself into it. So as a result, I got fairly handy, fairly quick in the kitchen.
Yeah. And did you take that up professionally then? You were working full-time then in restaurants?
Yes.
Once you were trained?
I finished in Belfast, and I bumped into a guy who was an older brother of somebody that I knew. And he goes, "You've just qualified?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "We're looking for someone to go down to work in a little seafood restaurant in a little fishing port, a little village called Dunmore East in County Waterford." And I thought, oh, that's a great idea. So I went and had a bit of a chat, and he spoke to the people that owned it. And the next thing, I was on a bus all the way from Armagh. I mean, that was a blimmin' journey and a half.
Journey?
Oh,
how
my
far?
giddy aunt. About 300-400 miles, but a lot of A roads, and not even A roads. We're talking B roads and stuff like that. But I got down there, and it was too quiet for me.
Yeah.
I was 18 then, and I wanted music and lights and London and West End, etc.
Yeah.
And this is the sort of village where you and I would love now.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful village, Dunmore East. But at the time, you don't appreciate those kind of things because you want other things. However, I learned more about fresh seafood in the 2 months that I worked there than I probably would have learned in a year. Because, you know, everything was coming in fresh, sometimes alive. It was an amazing place and a really good restaurant. And I learned lots of new disciplines. But I fell out with the owner. She was very cranky. And I decided, right, that's it. And being a stroppy little hot-headed so-and-so, I handed the notice in. And I phoned my old boss in Northern Ireland, who had worked in a place in Kerry. He phones his his old head chef. Head chef phones me, and I'll go straight into a brand new job.
Placement from one straight through to the other.
I travelled from Waterford to a little place called Le Stole in Kerry. Now, it was small, but it was vibrant. My God almighty.
So it kind of gave you everything you were missing in the previous one there.
Kerry would be my favourite county in Ireland.
Is it in Ireland, Kerry? Okay,
Kerry's just an amazing county, and it depends. My dad loves County Clare, for example. Some people love Cork, some people love Meath. So it's whatever floats your boat. For me, Kerry, and I worked in a hotel there, and it was a blast. And then I wanted to move to London, so I thought, well, if I leave in September, work September to Christmas in a hotel near basically where I served my time, did my time at trade. I got a job there, and I worked there from September 85 to December. And then I moved to London.
So you moved to London then, and when was it you first thought, I want to be part of the radio scene? Because you first started working, am I right in saying Top Shop?
You're right.
And HMV? HMV?
Well, now we've got to hit the rewind button.
Okay, there's more?
Yeah, enter selector. Let's hit the rewind. So when I was training to be a chef, there was two major roadshow guys, DJs had their own roadshow, mobile discos. And one of them asked me, fancy doing a bit of DJing? And being a cocky little so-and-so, again, I was about 15 at the time. I went, yes, I can do that. Hadn't a clue what I was doing. First gig that he ever gave me, Christmas Eve in the Cricket Club, Christmas 1982.
No pressure then.
No pressure, absolutely ram-jammed. But you know what? Everyone was so half-cut by the time I started DJing at 7 o'clock or whatever it was in the evening. That they didn't notice my mistakes. And I got away with everything. I kind of cut my teeth there, and I sort of just went with it. And when I...
So was that then just down to you're playing a record after record, talking in between them? Just a few little announcements to people, as basic as
requests
that? Requests
and stuff like that, and and then we would do slow sets and stuff like that. And just talking nonsense, really. I mean,
waffle.
and then when I really threw myself into the whole chefing thing, when I went to London and I started working in the kitchens in London, listened to radio really intently, and I thought, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. But I thought you needed like a degree. I really thought you needed like degrees in English and stuff like that, and engineering to work as a radio.
As a technical engineer as well.
And then I got chatting. Somebody said, "Have you ever tried a hospital radio?" And I thought, no. And I went along to I went to just one hospital radio station, and they offered me a little Saturday morning job taking requests. Then someone would host the request show, and then I'd read them out.
Okay, was this live or recorded?
Live.
Live, okay.
Live.
Yeah.
And then when the radio station was shut down, I used to sort of stay behind for an hour and play with the desk and get familiar with how your voice sounds, because it's a big thing when you're DJing in discos and bars. You're just talking in a mic and you're not hearing anything through your headphones. When you go from that to work in the studio, you've got your headphones on, you've got the tail end of a song going into the intro of another song, and then your voice, and you're concentrating on what you want to say. Trust me, it's a real shock to the system when you first do it.
Yeah.
So I sort of chipped around and practiced, and then I got my own show.
Wow. Okay.
And I got my own show, and it was like a greatest hits show, to be honest. You know. Yeah. And then I moved to Australia.
Oh, really? Australia?
Yes.
What took you there then?
My uncle, God rest him, he passed away a couple of weeks ago, had moved there. Thank you. He moved, you remember, is it a POM for a tenner or something like that? So he flew from Northern Ireland to London for a tenner, and then from London to Melbourne for a tenner. Wow. So that was back in...
How long ago was that?
67.
67?
He was my godfather, so I was born in the January, he went in the September, so he was this uncle that I never got to meet. So and I saved up, and then I moved to Australia. Wow. Obviously, being a chef, it got you your work visa very handy.
Did it then? Yeah. Okay, and how long did you stay in Australia for?
I was there for a year, and I did some small radio stations when I was there. Okay. There was one radio station that had a different breakfast show every day.
A different breakfast show every day?
Different breakfast show, Monday to Friday. And it was a public service radio station. So one of the rules were you were not allowed to play anything in the Australian top 40. So it was indie, if you like. Indie.
And in them days, did you have choice of what music you could play?
Basically, I compiled the whole show myself.
Okay, yeah.
Which you would never hear of now. Absolutely not. No.
So you were technically producing a show as well as presenting it at that time.
Yeah. So what I did was I played loads of songs that had never made it in the Australian charts that were mega here.
Yes.
And I became a little bit of a revelation.
So you had that bit of inside knowledge of what was successful in England and Ireland.
Yes.
Could work over there.
Yeah, and I was playing all sorts of bands that, like Deacon Blue had had a few minor hits, but I was playing tracks from their early album. Okay. I would go further back to Teardrop Explodes from the 80s, maybe Echo and the Bunnymen and stuff like that. Yeah. So they thought I was...
Was that Welcome Well?
Yeah, it was actually. Was it? Yeah, God, that's really...
Did you launch anybody over there who was successful here and hadn't made it overseas?
Sadly not, but you know what, with hindsight, there's something that I probably could have done.
Yeah.
I could have done, but I was talking to the Countdown Revolution, which was their version of Top of the Pops, and that went out a couple of times a week, I think, and not just one night like Top of the Pops here. And they were going to hire me to do a UK top 10 insert.
Okay.
Once a week.
Yeah.
And my visa was running out, and like everything, left it to the last minute.
Oh.
When I went to get to see if I could have an extension on my visa, they just went, "You've left it far too late. By the time we process this, your current visa will be out of date."
And you have to be off.
So I had to pack my bags, and go. And I didn't want to risk. Staying on and
upsetting the authorities, and then they may never let you back in again because they're a lot stricter in the UK, aren't they?
Yeah, well, certainly then you would have been out, and that would have been it.
So life could have been very different. In all the time I've known you, which I think is getting close to 20 years, I did not know you lived and worked in Australia.
I lived in Melbourne mostly. Okay. I had such a great year there. I don't cry very easily. I'm not big and tough, but I don't cry easily. But I did cry at Tullamarine Airport. I was very sad that day leaving. Very sad. To leave,
yes. And did you have anything to come back to the UK for, or were you heading back to Ireland?
I flew back to London, and then I went to home to my mum's house for a month just to say, because I hadn't seen everybody for a year. Yeah. And then I went back to London, and then I started working the Royal Albert Hall as a chef.
Royal Albert Hall?
Yes.
Very good.
So I was in there for quite a while. Yeah. And
so what would they put food on there for? Is that when they have an event and they're serving dinner tables? There's a main event on?
They would have banquet suites. Yeah. It was a very, very busy kitchen, a very busy operation. And in fact, when I started, it was the December of '89. It was a tennis tournament. It was an international tennis tournament, and my God, I was thrown straight into it. Yeah. I was given a sous chef's role, even though I wasn't a sous chef, and it was busy. You got in there at 7:30 in the morning. I used to believe in about 9:30, 10 o'clock of a night.
Wow!
And
it would hardly stop to take a breath, did you?
Do you know what? I was walking around at 11.5 stone. I just was working so hard. We used to leave the Royal Albert Hall. We would run down the hill, and we'd get to South Kensington Tube Station. There was a really good bar there, and we'd go in and we'd buy a double round, so we'd have 2 pints.
Yeah.
And then we'd get in the train, go home, sleep, get up, shower, straight off to work again. And that was it. So
it's quite a brutal industry for that, isn't it? And it can be 7 days a week, and sometimes in some industries, 365 days a year.
Yeah, it was. I think I was doing 6 or 7 days a week.
Wow.
It was decent money, so which was always nice. And you know, and the crack and the banter. There's a great head chef, and he wasn't that old. His name was George Stone, and sadly, he's no longer with us. He was a character. He knew when to kick ass, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So he knew when to play and when to pull rank.
Yeah.
And he was brilliant at that. Firm but fair.
Yes.
And he just made that working environment a real fun place. So you didn't notice the time that you were in there.
Or how hard you were working when it's fun to be in, isn't it?
And that's a really good boss. Yeah. That's a really good boss.
I suppose that's a nice place to be in, isn't it? You know, there's not that many people who can say that they enjoy their work so much it's somewhere they like to be in or want to do it. You find a lot of people in this day and age, it's a kind of a bit of a chore. You know, I've got to go to work on Monday morning, I've got to do. But you've always liked, even now in the radio side of things, haven't you? You've always loved the job and the role you've had. Going back to the chef, just round up on that, did you ever at one point think, I want to get my own business, set up my own restaurant? Or were you happy to work for other establishments?
I would be a dreadful businessman. I would be absolutely, you are outstanding, and you see things that other people cannot see, and you're brilliant, and you've always been like that. By the way...
He's being nice.
No, you really are. You're great with foresight, you're great at looking into things and thinking, yeah, this will work, that'll work. And you're a risk taker.
Yes, I take risks,
I probably am a bit of safe hands.
On the cautious side.
Yeah, I am, and I also, maybe it's something that I don't really have faith in myself because I don't
really...
Have
you took risks that have gone wrong? Can you recall? Where do I start?
I haven't. No, do you know something? I've always followed my instinct and followed my heart, and not always have things gone right for me, but as things, and I'm a real firm believer in this. You know, what's meant for you doesn't pass you by.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, when things didn't work out for me at Capital Radio in London, what happened led on to me moving to Radio Air Leeds, then Radio City, and now where I am today.
Yes.
I work out of that tower in Liverpool. If you ever visit Liverpool, you can't miss it. 450 feet up in the skyline. Doing greatest hits at breakfast.
But she's changing its name now. It's not going to be Radio City
Tower.
Well,
they've changed the hits. They've changed the hits. Doesn't affect us in greatest hits. We've been greatest hits for over 5 years now.
You have. And one of the most successful, is it, commercial shows in the UK now?
It is the second biggest commercial breakfast show in Britain.
Second biggest?
Yeah.
Wow. And you were the start with the first show back in 2019?
Well, it was 2019 was Radio City 2, and that was a real, almost instant success. Yeah. And then they launched it national as Greatest Hits.
Yes.
So January 2019 is when we launched it with David Bowie's Let's Dance, and I was the first voice on there. So.
Was it David Bowie's Let's Dance?
Which is, it seems, because we're all about the 70s, 80s and 90s, and if ever there was a legend that spanned across those decades,
all 3 decades,
70s, 80s and 90s was Bowie. And I thought, you know, we all sort of said, well, you know, let's dance, let's get the show on the road. It just ticked every box, so
One of my mum's favourite songs, actually, there's 2. There's that and Dexy's Midnight Runners, Come on Eileen, is it?
Come on Eileen.
Come on Eileen, they were my mum's 2 favourite songs then.
Biggest selling record of 1982 from the album.
Really?
Yeah, yes it was. Great.
Do you know what?
Album.
You have such a knowledge of dates. I remember even once on one of our maybe drunken nights out where you can pretty much name who was number 1. Whatever year or whatever date it was, and you were even testing me, I think, on my birthday or something else. I can't remember.
Do you know what?
I don't even remember what it was, but he knew.
Isn't it funny that I can remember those dates, and from 2007, 2008, and beyond. Yeah. No. You know.
No. Okay, then yes.
You know.
So before that, then drop you on the spot. Who was number 1 in Christmas time in 2001?
2001 was wasn't that the cover of Mad World? Was it the cover of Mad World? Hang on a second. No, that was 2002. Yeah. 2001, I think it might have been Robbie Williams and Something Stupid.
Possibly.
Robbie Williams, I think, was it with Nicole Kidman, Something Stupid 2001, and it was the Tears for Fears cover, Mad World 2002.
Yes, yeah.
Don't be taking me any more into the noughties. By all means, 70s, 80s and 90s.
From before all that then. The only one I can actually remember, sadly, was the noughties itself, because I had my own Christmas single.
You did?
Which, of course, didn't get to number one.
Well, I did punt it for you. I did push it for you.
I know you did. But it was the BBC's Mr. Blobby.
Yeah, Blobby was 19. No, that was a lot earlier.
Oh.
Blobby was 93.
Yeah.
And that prevented Take That Babe from going to Christmas number one.
Did it? Yes.
Yeah, they were both number one, and then they dropped, and they were like number one, number two, number one, and then the final week up to the Christmas
And
chart.
it got into it,
was
yeah.
Blobby, 1993.
So what was the Finger one again? It was another BBC production, so Oz was never going to get to number one. I had this conversation with Chris Moyles. At one, I know you know Chris as well.
Very well,
You've worked with him before. This one night, I might have told you this, out with Chris and a few other guests, and we drunkenly sneaked into the BBC radio centres, and him and Dave, Comedy Dave, at the time, had recorded their own.
I remember
like a rap song.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I remember I had a little video where I'd not long been out of Big Brother, about 2 or 3 months, and I was capturing all the funny things, the place I was going to, some stuff you can show and some stuff you can't show, that type of stuff. And we were sneaking in there, and I've actually got it on video of him and Dave singing and rapping this song that the BBC wouldn't let them put it out. But he told me, he said, there's no way your song can ever get to number one, because what production was it they had?
Was it Bob the Builder?
Yeah, the Bob the Builder one, that was it, of course, yeah. And all the money and effort that BBC have put into Bob the Builder, they were like, no way.
It was Neil Morrissey, wasn't it?
Morrissey, that's right.
Yeah, Neil Morrissey was Bob the Builder 1999. So to think about all the great music that we've had over the years, we come to the end of a millennium. It's the last ever Christmas number one, and oh my giddy aunt, it's Bob the Builder.
Bob the Builder, I know.
And then to be knocked off by the Lord's Prayer song by Cliff Richard.
Really?
Is, so there you have it. I mean, there's been some really good Christmas number ones over the years, and then there's been some that...
Any particular favourites?
Well, it wasn't number one, famously wasn't number one. Christmas 1987, The Pogues and Kirsty MacColl. I mean, for me, that's my favourite. The Pet Shop Boys held them off that year. For me, that's the greatest one. I tell you why, it's got sentimental value. I'd come home from London, and my mum and dad had just sort of split up, so I went to what the family home was. So my dad was living alone. So my granny, God rest her, my granny Nancy, who my daughter Nancy is named after, was there, and then one of my dad's best mates. So I was cooking Christmas dinner. And I remember phoning my granny and I says, the only thing I'm going to ask you to do, Granny, is please, will you make a sherry trifle? Just make the trifle. I'll put the custard on Christmas Eve. And it's one less thing I've got to do. Yeah. And then I'll decorate it and all the rest of it. But I'll do the whole meal on, Christmas Day. I'll do that. Indeed, but God, son, I'll do. Don't you worry. I've made thousands of trifles over the years. I'll do it. God bless her. Maybe it would say like add a pint of water to one of these blocks of jellies that you used to get. I think she put 4 of them in.
4 blocks of jelly, or
that's
4?
Softer than my granny's trifle. I kid nobody said anything. It was a bit like Uncle Albert when he put the coffee granules into the gravy bowl by mistake in that 1996 episode. We just sat around and we chewed, and sort of our gums, our jaws were sort of bouncing. But So I digress. That when dinner was done and all the rest of it. We put the table down and this, that, and the other. But me and her and my granny had a waltz to that song. So it was a bit of a waltz, a bit of a sort of like where she had a good few gin and tonics and I had a few beers and my dad's homebrew wine. So the crack was 90 and everyone was in good form. And we had that sort of little dance, granny and grandson. So when I hear that song, especially for the first time of the Christmas season every year, it instantly makes me think of my grandmother.
Back family memories.
And it's fond memories indeed.
Oh, that's lovely. That, isn't it? So being then obviously professional DJ for over 30 years now, and I know nowadays now you don't have much control about what music is put on there. For you, away from work, what music would you listen to chill or wind down, or in the car maybe? So
eclectic, and I mean from Roger Whittaker to Elbow, to AC/DC to Barbara Streisand.
Okay, so worlds apart.
Yeah. I'm really into Australian rock, and I got into it when I lived there. Now, stuff like Cold Chisel, no one's ever heard of Cold Chisel. You might have heard of Jimmy Barnes, the lead singer. He's had some success with INXS. Paul Kelly, great singer-songwriter, writes an amazing Christmas song called How to Make Gravy, which is it's the most wonderful story about a guy who's not one of the world's worst guys, but he ends up behind bars at Christmas, and he writes from his perspective behind
being in
bars.
a cell.
But yeah, while his family are going to be enjoying, and the whole song is, well, who's going to make the gravy? Because obviously that was his job.
That was his role.
So that again, I'm digressing a little bit. So I listen to a lot of Australian rock. I love soul. I love funk. And of course, I'm a massive fan of 80s. So really, if you were to look at some of my playlists that I've compiled, that I use, say, when I'm doing a workout or whatever, you go, how is that following that following that?
Doesn't make sense.
I mean, no, it doesn't. It really doesn't make sense. So it could go from Echo and the Bunnymen into Roger Whittaker's New World in the Morning. It's just, if I like it, I like it, you know?
Yeah, brilliant. So what kind of, I would say, being a professional DJ, working for so many different stations all over the country, what are the general perks that comes with that job? Is it hosting the live events, meeting the guests, or the performers?
Do you know, this is going to sound a little bit twee, but there's nothing really nice about getting out of bed at 4:10 in the morning. You know,
do the breakfast shows,
But I'm one of those really lucky ones. As soon as my feet touch the bedroom floor, I'm good to go.
You're good to go.
I am, and I'm really, really lucky in that respect. I don't feel sluggish when I get out of bed. When I walk from my bedroom to the bathroom, and by the time I do the showering the night before, so I don't disturb my wife and in the morning. So by the time I've had a good wash and a shave, brushed my teeth, had my first coffee, taken my vitamins, you know, and then I walk to work as well every morning.
You can from yours.
So that's just about a mile and a half, just over a mile and a half. By the time I've done all that, I'm good to go. So it's an absolute pleasure, really, when you wake, and we got the audience research out last week, and the figures, thank God, are really positive.
Okay.
So just under 3 million listeners to the breakfast show a week.
Wow.
Which is myself and producer Al. Obviously, we've got a couple of really good bosses who really do. Sometimes they don't get the credit they richly deserve, but they're behind the scenes. But you know, they've steered me in a very, very good direction over the past 5 or 6 years. So it's a pleasure. That's a perk to broadcast from that tower every morning, Monday to Friday, is a perk in itself. Yes, I get to host some amazing events, and there's some people there that are heroes to thousands, if not millions. And you know, you've met them yourself, you know, and it all depends what you're into. Maybe boxing or football, maybe it's singers, whatever it is. So you get to host those events or be asked to go to those events. There are so many perks along the lines of asked to go to openings, soft launches, you know, and sometimes you go, wow, I'm a lucky boy.
Yes,
you know,
be with these people and in sometimes these places, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite. Do you ever have to play a part in producing any of them shows then, the ones that you're on now currently, or is that down to the producer you just mentioned?
Alex Toll, as he'd prefer me to call him on camera, has been my producer for 7-8 years maybe. So that was from Radio City 2 through from day one on Greatest Hits. He is walking proof that age is but just a number, because he's only young. He's only just turned 27. But my God Almighty, his knowledge of the music we play, 70s, 80s, 90s, really blows me away sometimes. The amount of times says you probably won't know. I know that song. Yeah. So he's really into that, and he produces a couple of other shows on the station, by the way. And all the shows he produces has done really, really well, audience-wise. So I call him the ratings hat-trick king. That's
Hat-trick king?
Yeah, the ratings hat-trick king is my nickname for him.
Not often people see what actual work goes on in the backstage of producing a radio show, is there? Are you on it for 4 hours, or are you on here?
6 to 10, Monday to Friday.
6 till 10, and you're rolling up at what time? 5 in the morning?
Just after 5 I managed to get there. And I do a lot. I write a lot of stuff for myself, my own content. And I do a lot of that.
So when do you write that? The day before?
Some of it the day before, and then I use that 45 minutes that I'm sitting in the studio before I start at 6, because I'm good to go at 6. I really am. So I use that to catch up on anything that's happened topically overnight. Maybe maybe there's an evening football game or something like that, you can talk about that. And I use that just to get up to speed as to what's happened overnight or what's going to happen that morning.
Yes.
And then you're topical, but we only do positive. We don't, touch anything.
Not negative, not political and that type of
nothing.
stuff. Yeah.
Nothing. The news team are brilliant at that, and that's what they do.
Yes.
I just look, and we are the home of the good times. And basically, anything that I do content-wise on air is something to hopefully evoke a giggle, a laugh, a smile, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I get a laugh, then that's a bonus. It's got one there.
Now you mentioned, yes, you did, yeah. You mentioned that obviously you compare different things, and you also touched on the boxing then as well.
Yeah.
I believe you have, or do you still have it? The license to do the ring announcements?
Yeah, the MC license, I got that from the British Boxing Board of Control. I've not renewed it, so I'm out of license at the minute. But I've been busy. I've really, with hosting various events. And then if I'm not working, we like to try and get a weekends away. My wife, I, and Mickey Boy, or Jack Russell. And that's a funny thing. You've got to go in front of a team from the British Boxing Board of Control and former professional boxers. So it's like, you walk into, so normally you go to like a hotel and they'll have a room, something similar to this size, maybe a little bit bigger, and there's a big table. And then you've got to stand there and they say, right, introduce a fight off the top of your head.
Just off the top of your head? Okay, so they're not giving you a script too?
No, but I was very clever and I knew they were going to ask me.
You knew, so you're prepared?
Oh, yes.
Did you nail it?
Absolutely. Preparation is king.
Isn't it just?
It's funny, when I got to the end of it, and it was a made-up fight between Thomas the Hitman Hearns.
Thomas Hearns, yes. And
a great South African middleweight stroke super middleweight who I think beat Chris Eubank the first fight, and Eubank got the decision. And he did beat Nigel Benn, Thulain Sugarboy Malinga. So I made a super middleweight fight up with these two, and which is a fight that never happened, but I just made it up and made reference to the trainers and the records, etc., etc. So when I finished doing my audition, if you like, one of the ex-pros goes, well, obviously he wasn't making the decision as the Board of Control does, but one of the ex-pros goes, well, I have a funny feeling you're going to get your license because the way you introduced that fight, I'm actually wanting to see the fight now.
Really?
Yeah, because I want to see it, even though it's never happened.
Yeah.
And so I got the old license, which was nice.
That's great, isn't it? Because I know you're a big boxing fan. We've been out, haven't we? We've been out to boxing events and things.
So many events over the years.
My next guest joining us is in fact Big Joe Egan.
Joe Egan.
Yeah.
Joe Egan. You don't mean Joe Egan that John Fury keeps calling out but doesn't do anything about it. You mean that Joe Egan?
He doesn't seem to be wanting to step up to the challenge, let's say, does he?
Oh no, listen, I know Joe, and actually I met Joe via you at your book launch in the Sir Thomas Hotel.
Yes, back in 2008? Yes, 2008,
yeah, 2009, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I met Joe, and then I met him on a few other occasions since, and then I emceed a world title fight out in Malta, and he came out and he was part of the team that were putting on the event, or he was drafted in to advise. Himself and Steve Collins, and that's how I met Joe. So yeah, I'm very supportive of Joe.
He's a cracking fella, isn't he? He's got some great stories.
And he's a gentleman. He is hard as nails. Tyson described him as the hardest man he's ever sparred with. He couldn't put him down in sparring, and but he is a gentleman, Jim, as well. You know?
He really is. And what was nice is, I know he's got his beef with John Fury, Tyson's dad, of course, and he's predominantly been calling him out now, hasn't he, to box, even unlicensed boxing as well. The bare knuckle one, I think he's called him out if he doesn't want to do it. He did put another message out to Tyson Fury, wishing him all the best before his fight with Yusuf on Saturday. And then I was with Joe watching the fight. Tyson at the weekends with Joe, and what was nice, he showed me a message and he said that Tyson actually sent him a direct message to say, thanks for your well wishes, and the good luck for the fight, because Joe put some nice things out. He said, you're good for, you're a good ambassador to boxing, you're a good ambassador for mental health and various different things. You're both very equally matched, great professionals in your areas, and it'll be a great fight. And he said, I just hope to God that you both walk out safe and healthy, be able to see your families after it. And Tyson did send him a personal message back to say, thank you very much for the well wishes and things like that. And he said, I'm sorry that you and my dad have got a grief. We hope you can work it out amicably, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're two fighting men, aren't they? They'll both be very, very capable. Would you like to watch it as a boxing fan?
I would support Joe. I would definitely be there to support Joe because I've known Big Joe for quite a while. You say fighting man. I mean, John Fury should mention the fact a few more times that he's a fighting man because he very rarely mentions it.
Has he never mentioned it? No. Okay.
So I hope he's not watching this podcast.
Yes, so do I. Yeah. I hope he doesn't know where I live.
So yes, I would. Yeah, I would. It's I mean, it's like the Jake Paul fight coming up with Mike Tyson.
Well, I was going to ask you that because these crossovers that are happening, I've always kind of been brought up of watching the boxing, and of course I've got into the MMM and the UFC and things like that over the years. What's your view on this crossover of two professionals like this?
I mean, I'm not the world's biggest fan, but it makes the YouTuber influencer a lot of money. But whoever steps into the ring with him, a bit like if you get chosen to fight Canelo Alvarez, then you know that you're going to make enough money to probably set you up for life.
The rest of your life, yeah.
So you see Tommy Fury, I don't know what he got paid for his fight against Jake Paul, but that he couldn't.
I heard it was one of his best paydays.
Yeah, he couldn't have earned that over 4 fights. I don't think.
Wow.
I don't think. Tom, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't have imagined so. So, people call it a circus. Call it what you like. But I'll definitely be watching the Mike Tyson one.
Yes.
I'll definitely be watching the Mike Tyson one.
Because I think if I look at that, Jake Paul kind of can't lose, really, can he? Because, he's both getting a hell of a lot of money for it. They'll be getting the exposure across all their channels, which they will be financing from hugely, no doubt. But if he loses against Mike Tyson physically, there's no shame on losing against Mike Tyson. If you can stand up one round with Mike Tyson, I think you're a winner in one eyes. And if he does manage to win over Mike Tyson, he's 30 years junior of him, isn't he?
Yeah.
He should be quicker. He should have more stamina. But
he
the
definitely
technique
will have the
and the
stamina.
Power that Mike's had,
I think
and
Mike
the muscle
Tyson,
memory of them movements he's capable of doing.
He's got to go for an early finish.
You think, yeah?
I think
Mike
so.
Tyson's got to go for an early finish.
He has to.
Okay.
I think so because, regardless of how good a shape you keep yourself and how fit you are, you're still, by the time the fight comes on, I think he'll be 58.
Yes.
And, I'm 57 and I've done those white collar boxing events which you've done.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of thinking, well, could I do those 3 2-minute rounds now the same as I could have done, say, 5-6 years ago? And probably not is the answer.
Exactly.
And even though I cover 7 miles a day, near enough every day of my life, either walking or working out or doing whatever. And Father Time, does play its part. So Jake Paul is very, he's young.
He's got the youth again for him.
And, it's an interesting one, but I do think Mike Tyson is going to come out smoking, and I
think he's got to.
Yeah.
He's got to really try and take him in the first round, because I think if Jake Paul can manage to keep out of his way and his power in that first round, he's got more of a fighting chance by the time the second round and it goes to the third round. Is it going to be 2 or 3 minutes? I'm not sure what it is.
I'm pretty sure did I read somewhere it was going to be 2-minute rounds?
Okay, yeah, I think I have seen it somewhere.
So, I mean, that would probably play in Mike Tyson's favour rather than the 3 minutes.
Yeah. But you know yourself, as you say, being 27 years of age, his lungs, liver, kidneys, everything, his stamina is going to outshine Mike after the second round.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, after so it'll be an interesting one, and as you say, both will walk away very, very rich,
very wealthy from it. Won't be? Yeah. Hopefully nobody gets hit too much. So talking of boxing, you and me have both got in there, and it's a lonely place, the boxing ring, isn't it? When you're there.
I trained. So you boxed on the second bill that I boxed on.
Yeah.
So I remember training. I think I've trained the hardest for my first fight, which is 3 2-minute rounds, white collar. And I did really, really put the effort in more than any previous, because I didn't know what I was going into, right?
Yeah.
So I really did train diligently. I did for all the others, but that was the one I trained hardest for, because it was the first. And I was as fit as I was going to be. But I remember, because I'm not a fighter, I've never had not since school.
You were fighting an ex-professional, weren't you? Yeah.
Well, he could box.
Yeah, he certainly could.
And I remember, because I'm not a fighter and I've not got it in me, doing my ring walk and seeing all the faces of people that I knew, friends, colleagues.
And there was some hard men there, wasn't there?
There was ex-pros.
Ex-pros there, yeah.
And I remember the nerves kicking in.
Yeah.
So much so that when I walked into the ring, I thought, I've got nothing left.
You've used up a lot of your energy.
I started the fight before the intros. I think I've got nothing in my tank. I was that nervous.
Which makes you more nervous. Knowing you can feel your strength draining from you, can't you?
But then when the bell went, you went and you sort of pushed that aside. Yeah. I always finished the third round better than I started the first.
Oh, is that what you found?
Yeah.
Because you'd warmed up and loosened up. Yeah, because, I also fought, on the second bout, I fought, not against you, but I fought an ex-professional as well, didn't I? Who, they were both holding back a little bit on us because they were been professionals and they're very well capable of going overboard on us, really. But they weren't professional because it was more of an exhibition fight. How hard was it for you, do you think? Taking the punches and giving them?
I never felt them. I felt the thud, but I didn't feel any pain. You know what I mean? I knew when it was hit.
Yeah.
But I didn't go, oh God, that was sore. I'll tell you, this is the God's honest truth. Well, I'll tell you two stories. The hardest punch and the one that hurt the most ever, him. We decided to have a spar. Because we're just to get movement. So we weren't punching, we were just sparring and moving. And Derry Matthews, the next thing, this overhand right comes bang, right in my nose. And of course, the tears, they're not crying, it's just the tears start flowing. And I'm thinking, I can feel my nose swelling up like a strawberry. And I'm thinking, but there was loads of the guys from Derry's gym. They're all around because it's Craig Phillips and Rossi, all watching. I'm going, oh my God, I hope my nose isn't bloody bleeding. I'm going to kill him when I get out of this bloody ring. That was one.
I'm so sorry.
And you know what? It made me keep my guard up. So there you go.
Yeah, keeps you tighter, doesn't it? Keeps your defense tighter.
The last white collar fight for Cash for Kids, I fought a guy who's lost an awful lot of weight. He's lost about 8 stone, but he was in around 25 stone. He was 3 inches taller than me and 10 years younger. And this is a true story. We were boxing, we were moving around, and he's the current announcer at Goodison, and I was the former. So it was so that was the sort of setup. So I had him in the corner, and I thought, right, I'm going to step around this way because he's going to come this way. And as I sidestepped this way to move, he threw a hook and landed in my ribs there. 26 stone, right.
How big he was?
Yeah.
26 stone. Oh.
So full blast in the ribs. Now, again, I didn't feel any pain, but I felt like I'd been hit by a car. It was like, boom! And Jazza Dickens,
the wind out of you?
No, I didn't. This is the thing. I didn't lose any wind, but I felt the thud. Jazza Dickens, former world champion, was doing my corner, and he didn't say anything. That was the second. After the third had finished, he says, "How's your ribs?" And he goes, "I got hit there, didn't I?" He said, "I was worried. I thought you would have done." So that was fine. The next day, it started to hurt. So 2 cracked ribs. Yeah. But with cracked ribs, you can do nothing. So this got worse, the pain, worse and worse. Yeah. So about a week and a half later, I got out of bed one morning. I must have been sleeping on them really badly. And I got out of bed and I couldn't breathe. It was like, and I had to begin to do my radio show. So I was getting dressed and I was like, getting my trousers on, my shoes. So, and I was like, oh my God, do I wake my wife up and ask her to dress me? And it was one of those, bad? It was horrendous. And it was pain like I'd never felt before. So I drive to work and I'm getting out of the car and it's a real effort. Mm-hmm. As I'm getting out, I sneeze.
Oh, I've had this.
You can only imagine. Seriously, it was like I thought, oh my God. So it gets out of the car. So where the tower is, of that early of a morning, you've got to walk out and around the Holiday Inn and down that walkway, down past Argos, right? Yes. 4:45 in the morning, not a human being is sitting in the street. And I am walking, I can barely breathe. I am now in agony like I've never felt before. As I'm walking
How many days? This 2 or 3 days after?
This is over a week.
Over a week after? Okay.
Next thing I'm walking, I hear, "Hey!" I go, oh my good Lord. So I carry on walking, I thought, I'm going to ignore this. "Hey!" Second time.
And I can't even run.
I can't run. I can't defend myself. I can't do anything. I've got to ignore this. And the next thing, third time, hey! I thought, I'm going to meet fire with fire. So I turned around quite aggressively, as quick as I could, taking everything into account. And I let off a few expletives, like, well, Sean say, you know, what's your problem?
Yeah.
It was a seagull. It wasn't a human being, it was a seagull that was going, hey!
Was it squeaking?
Hey! It was a seagull on the path just squawking, but it sounded like a man shouting, hey! So I've just let rip, as I've done it.
Imagine seeing that.
One of the street cleaning team came walking by and said, "You all right, Rossi?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm just having a barney with that seagull."
He's picking on me.
I swear to God, I thought it was somebody shouting at me. And I turned around. I was quite relieved to see it was a seagull. I wouldn't even have fancied my chances against a seagull because we're dead hard in Liverpool.
I know, yeah. That is funny, but you managed to get into work and did your day. So away from the boxing and away from your radio DJing as well, you've also been the pitch announcer, haven't you, at Goodison?
Yeah, I did 2 Premier League teams, Leeds United.
Okay, I did
that for a couple of seasons when I worked over at Leeds at Ellen Road. A great time with that. And 10 seasons I did at Goodison.
10 seasons, okay, yeah.
And I've had some great mispronunciations over the years. On
announcements of the names? Or,
yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the most famous was, it wasn't that I couldn't pronounce it, it's even the smallest of word sometimes doesn't come out.
Yeah.
And it was Aston Villa, and it was I think number 12, Gabriel Agbonlahor, which isn't that hard to say. And I was going down the Villa team, and I did theirs quite straightforward. And then when I got to Everton, it was the big Michael Buffer style, you know. And I was getting down, and Phil Neville was on the bench. He was coming back from injury, and I got to number 12, and it wouldn't come out. It was Gabriel and it just wouldn't come out. And then I tried it again and it wouldn't come out. So, Phil Neville, what are you saying? And he was taking the mick out of me, and I'm going, all right, I'm getting down to the end of the
Villa. And did he have a mic as well?
No, he was just jumping in my ear. And I'm getting down to the end of the Villa, and I'm going, oh, I hope he stops, because I really don't want to make any trip or mistake doing the Everton team news. Yeah. So that was that, got it away. So the next season, it was when I got into Twitter and everything else, and you were the one that told people to follow me on Twitter when I first got on there. You told people. And I was getting these tweets, oh, Villa tomorrow, how are you going to get on with Gabby Agbonlahor and all the rest of it?
Were they?
So I was getting that. So when I was doing the team news, I slightly paused after number 11 from Villa, and I left a little pause, and I went, number 12, Gabriel Agbonlahor, right? So the next thing, all the Everton fans cheer. So Gabriel Agbonlahor was going, because I pronounced it properly.
Right, yes.
So the next thing, I think he was either substituted or something, I can't remember. But I went, Villa's substitution coming off, number 12, Gabriel Agbonlahor. Of course, the Everton fans cheer again. So Gabriel Agbonlahor is looking around going, what the hell's going on here? Why are the Everton fans cheer? Am I coming on a free transfer from Villa Park?
Something I don't know yet.
Yeah, so I've had 1 or 2 slip-ups over the years.
Over the years. I had a slip-up once on live TV. I'd been asked, not long been out of Big Brother, I was doing the rounds, and it was like, I think it was the Loose Women one, at the start of that. And it was at the time, I don't think they do it now, but the time where they read the news out, it was only like a little 4-minute schedule throughout the hour or the couple of hours they were on air. And the producer said to me beforehand, Craig, will you read the news out loud? We've never had anyone from Liverpool. I'm dyslexic, aren't I? I get my words back to front anyway, the best of times. I'd never done an auto cue. So they basically, the cameras are this big, they got a big auto cue, and they said to me, don't worry, it'll just roll the speed you read it at, and you'll get a countdown in your ear, and there's 4 ears behind the counter. When they count down, you turn straight to camera 3, and they're going to be on a wire and just read it. So I was like, okay. This is about 20 minutes before we're going to go on air. So I said, I'm not very good at reading, a bit dyslexic. I said, can I have a look? And he went, it's the front pages, what's on the newspapers. You're going to be reading out what's on today's news. On that day's news, it was George Bush had his best ever election.
All right, okay.
I had bodyguards with me at this point who were chaperoning me around. They were saying to me, a erection.
Oh, they got on your psyche.
And they're planting that seed in your mind. And I'm thinking, okay, read it out. Don't say erection. Don't say erection. And I can hear the countdown. 4 seconds, 3. Turn to camera 3. Craig's turn to camera 3. It starts to roll out. Sounds of okay, today's news. I'm trying to be a newsreader, you know, all dead prim and proper. Trying to hide my Scouse accent and everything. I was trying to do it. And I was like, George Bush has had his best ever erection. And when we went erection, because I stopped like that. The way it stops, doesn't it? Because they're turning the thing. I could see the directors at the side of the camera, carry on, roll with it. People just started to laugh. And they had a live audience as well.
Yeah, of course.
In them days, you know, 24 years ago sort of thing. And I was just, and then you're trying to pull yourself back.
It's a little bit unfortunate, really, isn't it? Yeah. Having Bush and erection.
Bush.
All in the same sentence.
Go hand in hand, don't they?
We're two in the bush.
Hands two in the bush.
Oh, dear.
So then, what's next for you then, Rossi? It seems like you've kind of conquered a variety of different avenues, from being a professional chef to obviously 33 years professional disc jockey in commercial radio. You've gone through a variety of different radio stations. You've done comparing, you've done, you know, the football grounds, boxing. Is there anything you haven't done, or is there something you'd like to do?
You know what? My contract for this current gig is up in November, and it might not sound. I've told my bosses that I'd like to see my career out at Greatest Hits.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that doesn't, and some people would probably look at that and say, well, isn't there other things you aspire to do? And I said, well, it's playing the music I really, really love.
Yeah.
And I'm working with great people.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm 57 now. So, I mean, that's what I'd like to continue to do, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the foreseeable
future.
If
they're watching, his contract needs to double. It's too good.
And so that I would probably like to do a little bit more TV work, and I'm also working on a podcast idea with producer Al.
That's what I was going to suggest you need to do.
So it's something that we'll probably do, maybe a 20-30 minute, you know, podcast idea.
I think you should, because of your all experience you've got, you're never going to dry it with something to say. You've had, I'm going to guess now, thousands of guests on over the years that you've interviewed.
Yeah.
Talked about their careers. You've had me on there, you know. You've got access to friends like John Bishop. I know you've done voiceover for his DVDs and various things like that. You're a voiceover artist as well. I think you do a good job of that, because you can get yourself set up. You can bring friends down that you've known in the industry over the years and chat to them about their career.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that'll probably, hopefully, come into fruition between now and the end of the summer, if not before. Yeah. Something that we've been kicking around for a while. So if that comes, then that'll be good. And
well, we're the production team here. We're all ready to do it for you if you want.
You know, that sounds rather inviting.
You haven't seen the editing yet.
All right, okay.
Wait till you see how this turns out before you commit on screen.
So that's something that I'm looking at, and there's a few other things that I've been talking about over the past couple of weeks as well. That, you know, if it comes into fruition again, I'll definitely tell you more about that.
Okay, well, we look forward to hearing that space. And how's Nancy now? How old's Nancy?
Nancy's going to be 18 in October. That's my daughter. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast, named after my granny Nancy. A good old-fashioned name is Nancy. Nancy is about to finish college, and I think she wants to travel. After she hits 18, she wants to go off and do Thailand, and she was doing all the stuff you were doing, like the MMA that you've done, and she became, I don't know if I ever sent you a little video clip of it on WhatsApp.
You did once, yes.
Yeah, and she became very good at that, but now she's not so much doing that now, but she wants to, I think she's read up about Thailand, so she wants to do Thailand and Australasia, and you know, go down to maybe Melbourne and Sydney, and you know, do that bit of travelling.
Yes, yeah.
Which will be, and your day will come as well, my friend, as your kids get older. What's it going to be like when she sets off? And then you're sort of thinking, oh my God.
Scary, isn't it?
She's not just down the road, you know. She's
to the side of the world
12,000 miles away.
Scary, isn't it?
It is scary.
All of a sudden, what's always wants your little baby.
I did it, you know, so my parents probably felt the same, but back in my case, they probably think that. I'm glad to get rid of him. Only 12,000 miles. Can't you go any further? Sadly not, or I'll end up in the ocean somewhere. So that's Nancy, yeah, and so she's doing well.
And how's married life for you? Beautiful Emma, we seen it on Friday at the NHS Awards. We were all together.
It's always great to get with you and Laura and myself and Emma, and she's great. She's been a bit of a rock for the last 10 years, and kept me in the straight and narrow. So those late nights, because before you met Laura and before I met my wife Emma, if I was invited somewhere with a +1, or you were invited +1, we'd be one another's +1. So we'd just go along and turn it into a very boozy session. It was mostly at weekends, so we would end up coming back to my house.
We'd go on Friday night and finish partying Sunday.
It was just like, oh my God, if I even think about those kind of nights now, it's just like, if even in the weekend, if I'm up after 10 p.m, I get a nosebleed. So I'm reformed is actually. I think I've become a bloody bore. To be perfectly honest,
You think you've become a bore?
A bore. I look at myself
now.
We're
just more sensible and professional than what we used to be.
I know, but I'm really sensible now, and it actually I annoy me for the way I am. But it's like, the days of. Even going in and having 4 or 5 pints.
I can't do it no more. Not with young kids. For me, I can't do it. I don't want to do it as well.
Well, I'm lucky. I can go to bed and wake up and I'm fine. I don't feel anything the next day. I just can't stomach it. It's just like, I've had a pint. Can I fit another one in?
Yeah.
And it's just like weird. It's weird. I don't know. 15
years ago, we'd neck 10 of them. It wasn't a problem.
Yeah, then we could down to some serious drinking. But always drink 10 pints responsibly.
Yeah, of course, of course. Rossi, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
Always good to see you. You always put a smile on my face. There was something. Can I touch on one more thing?
Yeah, please do.
Do you mind? So I've known Craig, as he mentioned, just over 19 and a half years. Now, one of the most famous scenes ever in Big Brother was you, and of course,
Nasty Nick.
Nasty Nick.
Yeah.
Right. I've met Nasty Nick, and I expected him to be one way, but I found he was okay. He was actually nice. He was very pleasant to me. But to get you that angry, I can never fathom it, because in the 19 and a half years that we've been friends, and we've been in all sorts of situations, never once have I ever seen you raise your voice.
Oh, really?
Never once have I seen you reply to anything other than with a smile or with jest or with warmth.
That's nice to know.
And no, I sincerely mean that. And I was thinking about that coming out. Got the train over to be here today, and I was thinking about how on earth, if I've known him for the best part of 2 decades, can Nasty Nick do in 15 minutes what nobody that I've seen could do in 20 years? Well, there you have it.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a nice compliment.
No, I mean that.
I think Nasty Nick, though, it was probably what it was the kind of exaggerated pressure we were under in the Big Brother house. We didn't
And nobody
realise.
knew. It was unknown.
Yeah.
It was absolutely unknown.
People often ask me, did you learn much about yourself being in the Big Brother house? And before I went in, I run a successful building company, and I was always juggling so much, racing against time, under stress, under pressure, and this, that, and the other. And I had a lot on my mind. And when I got in that house, because you have everything taken away from you, you get bored. We were all very bored. And you've got to remember, the viewers only seen an hour version of 28 cameras and another 10 more behind the one-way mirrors. So 38 cameras, 24 hours a day, edited down to a highlighted 1 hour.
Yeah.
So what went on throughout the rest of it didn't make the final cut was boring. Yeah. And I can honestly tell you, I sat in there sometimes, someone would have a cup of tea or a coffee, something, they'd leave the cup like that right on the end.
Edge.
And I'm kind of thinking to myself, that's going to get knocked off. Just put it there. Normally, that I wouldn't care if that is on the edge or if it gets knocked off. I don't care. But when you're in that environment, tuning into everything, the tiniest of things really, really bothered you. And Nick was a liar, basically, and he'd made promises to us all to be friends and things like that. So I felt quite betrayed, with him out there. And it was wrong, because I was going in there to win for a particular reason, and I would believe in a fair fight, and I just thought, you're cheating, if I was cheating, or if I was, I don't know, trying to bully him or something in there, I'd be kicked straight out. So I didn't believe it should go on what he done.
Honestly, if you haven't, and I would say most people watching this and listening to this have, but if you haven't, YouTube Craig and Nasty Nick, and he lets rip. He lets rip. And I think Nick did the right thing by,
He got kicked out, didn't he? Had to walk.
And not sort of rising to your challenge, your indirect challenge.
We've asked him to come on and do a podcast with us. He lives in Australia now. He lives in Sydney, so he can't come here in person, of course. But Laura and I last seen him, the first time Laura met him, when we went over and I proposed to Laura
on Sydney Harbour.
And I contacted Nick to say, I'm over there, we'll come and see you and stuff. And we went for dinner with him, and he was still talking nonsense basically and telling us his usual lies. Laura could see right through him. And when we started to do a little bit more on social media and lockdown was happening, everyone was talking on Zoom and things like that, we asked him, was it last year, was it? Yeah, we asked him, last year, come on and do a live podcast with us on the thing, and he said no, he wouldn't do it.
I'll not swear.
Come on, Nick.
I'll not swear, but it's something you ring and it ends in an end, right? Okay.
It's been a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you've enjoyed our 11th podcast with AKA